So thanks everyone. Again, my name is Phil Silva, and I'm very lucky to hang out with the Gowanus Canal Conservancy on a regular basis to do a number of different things, including mapping all of the street trees in the watershed, and I'll get into that in a bit. But I want to set some intentions for this morning's panel. Our focus, as you know, is looking at design considerations and approaches to projects in the Gowanus Canal watershed. And as you'll see in your program, there's sort of three keywords that we want to make sure we grapple with as we do that. One is contextuality, the other is resiliency, and the last is ecology. All of them with incredibly complex definitions, and we could probably tussle for days about what those are. I want to thank the panelists. We're going to go in the order of Lee, and then Andrea, and then Tricia, and then Maggie. Just so you guys know, I'll be up front. You'll have 15 minutes, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning and then a 1-minute warning, just so that we can try to keep on time. A couple of things to frame our discussion today. First, by the end of our panel, we want to have discussed how ecologically sound design is implemented in an industrial and residential context. And already I'm starting to think, what does that mean? What does ecologically sound design mean? And who gets to define that? And what does it mean to implement design in an incredibly complex context like this one, where there are a lot of different actors involved? We're also going to have explored how green infrastructure is being incorporated into open space planning in this area. And of course, that begs the question, what is green infrastructure? And we've started to poke at that with this morning's keynote, but it deserves a lot of exploration. And who does that green infrastructure serve? And of course, who maintains it? Because it's very different from gray infrastructure in its maintenance requirements. And lastly, we're going to have reviewed how public, private, and community-based organizations are investing in neighborhood resiliency. And of course, resiliency, as you all know, is a new watchword that has sort of replaced sustainability as the thing that we all talk about. So what is this thing, resiliency, and what is it for? The idea of resiliency implies that we're going to be able to tolerate some kind of disturbance. So what is it that we're going to be able to tolerate? It's obviously, we're talking about climate change, but what else comes with that? Let's get as specific as possible with that. I've been given the chance to talk a bit about TreeKit, which is a project that's working with Gowanus Canal Conservancy and increasingly the entire city of New York to measure, map, and collaboratively manage the street trees, or that largest component of the urban forest in this particular city. The idea is to support volunteers like Eva. Eva is sort of the block captain of her street, Menida Street, in the Hunts Point neighborhood of the South Bronx. And Eva goes out with her very, very complex irrigation system here, and she harangues her neighbors into taking care of the street trees on her block. But Eva needs help. Eva needs some way to track the work that she's done so that she can see whether or not her neighbors have done that work, so that she doesn't have to duplicate their efforts. And she needs a smarter way to connect with her neighbors. And right now, most of the volunteer stewards, the thousands at this point of volunteer stewards that are fanning out across the city, this is about as complex as it gets. They're sharing marble notebooks where they store the date and time that they did something. They're drawing their own sort of neighborhood-based maps. And while this is fantastic from a homespun perspective, it doesn't get us to the scaled-up level of stewardship that we really need in order to make these millions of trees that we've been planting thrive and survive. And so we start to see initiatives like Open Tree Map that's been sprouting up in other cities across the country that allows neighborhoods and cities to share their inventories of street trees and allow folks to start to connect, to put in what they've watered, what they've pruned, what they've mulched, and have that reflected back to the larger community so that you can actually search and see that there's this little leaf linden someplace, and you can put in that you've watered it on a particular day. This is the state of our street tree inventory in New York City right now. It's not exactly spatially accurate, and it wasn't designed to be, so we can't really make fun of it for that. But the 2015 New York City Street Tree Census is coming up, and I'm proud to say that Gowanus Canal Conservancy is way ahead of the pack on this, and I'll get into that in a bit. But the idea is that we want to, as I say, help people measure, map, and collaboratively manage so that they can help track, see, and connect with one another. And we use these very, very simple and cheap tools. We don't use GPS. We don't use really much of GIS either. We just use old-fashioned site surveying techniques that would have been familiar to one of those Dutch farmers that Adrian was talking about earlier. This is the methodology really quickly. We start with a start point at the cross intersection of a particular corner. We put down our little rolling tape measure. We measure the distance to the first tree bed. We record the length and width of the tree bed. And we basically keep doing that over and over again. We capture the diameter at breast height, and the species of the tree, and we iteratively do that till the end of the block. And we do that on paper right now, although we're shifting to a mobile app version to do that. And that takes a messy inventory like this one that's spatially inaccurate. Trees are not actually on top of buildings. Trees are not in the middle of the street unless there's a median, but there's no median there. And puts the trees where they're supposed to be. And that's the result. And a lot of people hug trees while they're doing this as a result in order to take the diameter at breast height, particularly young people. And this is the result. We've mapped well over 1,000 trees in the watershed at this point, and we're proud to be one of the first users of OpenTreeMap Cloud, which means that the inventory is being hosted publicly. You can actually go to opentreemap.com/Gowanus trees to see the inventory as it is right now. It's calculating ecosystem service benefits in real time using metrics developed by the U.S. Forest Service. So this year, the street trees in the Gowanus Canal watershed saved well over $40,000 in terms of energy conserved, stormwater filtered, air quality improved, et cetera. And we'll be inventorying more trees in the future. So that's TreeKit. I encourage you to check it out. And it's a slightly different way of thinking about ecology within an urban context. We're going to shift over to Lee's presentation now.